there a count back?
Welcome to the Candidates Forum for Mayor of Easthampton. I am Becky Shannon from the Northampton Area League of Women Voters, and I will be the moderator this evening. The League is a nonpartisan political organization. We encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Our sponsors tonight are Easthampton Media, the Hampshire Gazette, the League of Women Voters, and WHMP Radio, and we welcome all of you in attendance this evening, either here or listening at home. WHMP Radio is live and streaming this evening, so please get out your cell phones and make sure they're muted. Thank you. Our program will end promptly at 8 o'clock. The candidates tonight are running for Easthampton Mayor. They are Nicole Chappelle.
Hello.
And Joy Winnie.
Hello.
And let's all give them a round of applause. You're fortunate that you have two candidates running for an office, and it's most appreciated their public service. Our panelists are Dan Crowley from the Hampshire Gazette. He's in the middle. Jean Cherdak from the League of Women Voters. Wait. And Kathleen Lynch from Easthampton Media. Our timekeepers are League members. We will begin with a 2-minute opening statement by each candidate, and the candidates have drawn straws to choose the first speaker. Questions will begin as soon as opening statements are done. Questions from panelists will rotate as follows: the League of Women Voters, Easthampton Media, the League of Women Voters, the Gazette. Please note that the League's questions are coming from the audience tonight, and the League will be given 2 questions during the rotation to allow for equal time for audience questions and media questions. League members will be collecting questions from the audience throughout the evening. Questions are limited to 30 seconds in length and must be asked to both candidates. Candidates will have 90 seconds to address the question. Rebuttals will be allowed if a candidate singles out or criticizes the other candidate by name or implication. The offended candidate may ask for 30 seconds to respond. 1 rebuttal time will be allowed per candidate. Following the program tonight, you and the candidates are invited to a speakeasy at Suite 160 in Eastworks. And there you can continue the conversation with the candidates and the public. So let's begin with an opening statement starting with Nicole.
There we go. Can everyone hear me? Great. Thank you, Betsy, and thank you to tonight's hosts, the League of Women Voters, Easthampton Media, and the Gazette. My name is Nicole LaChapelle, and I am running for mayor of Easthampton. It's why I sit on this stage right now. 20 years ago, I chose to move to Easthampton and then chose yet again to stay for 20 years and raise my daughter. One of the reasons why I stayed was the vibrant community and the welcoming, safe place I found in Easthampton. Today, I run for mayor because I am deeply committed to make sure that others like me, whether they are a single mother or a young family, a new business, also can make the choice to come to Easthampton and to stay with Easthampton. I find it imperative that right now we're at a crossroads. Easthampton has many opportunities before it, and to look at those opportunities in a critical way and a patient way to make sure that the success that the city is experiencing now is a success that everyone can experience and be a part of. My priorities as mayor include building up our school infrastructure, looking at economic development, increasing opportunities for a diverse community, and working with public safety agencies to make sure that they have the resources to do the job to keep our community safe, but also to build trust throughout the community so everyone can feel welcome. I look forward to tonight's conversation and questions from our panel here and also members of the audience. Thank you.
Joy. Okay, thank you. They started? Okay. My name's Joy Winnie. Oh, hello. Okay. Oh, guess you gotta bring it right up. Okay. Sorry about that. My name's Joy Winnie, and I'm asking for your vote on November 7th as your next mayor of Easthampton. I'd like to thank our moderator, Becky Shannon, and our panelists and sponsors, the Daily Hampshire Gazette, the League of Women Voters, and Easthampton Media, but especially the audience and the people viewing this debate from home tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Easthampton. I graduated from Easthampton High School and Hoyle Community College with an associate's degree in business management. My campaign platform emphasizes my experience, vision, and community. I was elected to the Easthampton City Council in 1996, and during those 21 years, I've run unopposed 9 times. My leadership experience encompasses serving as the City Council Vice President for 9 years, President for 2, and my council subcommittee assignments include Finance, Public Safety, Appointments, and Rules and Government Relations. In addition, I've served as the President of the Massachusetts Association for Pupil Transportation, and I've served as the Transportation Supervisor for Northampton Public Schools since 2000, where I currently manage an annual budget of $1 million. I've always worked for 21 years to strive to make Easthampton a welcoming and wonderful place to live, to raise your family. As a city councilor, I take pride in knowing that I've been part of Easthampton's continued revitalization projects over the last 21 years. Building the public safety complex, purchasing 50 Payson Avenue, we rezoned Pleasant Street to allow for mixed-use buildings, allowing those properties to be redeveloped into business incubators, apartments, artisan spaces, restaurants, and breweries. I look forward to continuing to serve the residents of Easthampton, the city I love, should you choose me as the next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Our first question will come from the League of Women Voters.
How are you equipped, and what resources would you draw on to address the issues around race and bias that surfaced in our schools?
Nicole.
Thank you for the question. As an attorney, a certified superintendent, and special ed director in Massachusetts, I've had years of experience looking at these issues in public school districts, but also communities of different sizes, whether that be Holyoke or Springfield, where to pull in resources from state agencies as well as not-for-profits who have experienced and worked with both students, parents, and educators in this issue are imperative. I consider the Department of Education, but as well as the Attorney General's office and the Department of Justice, as well as looking towards the Department of Public Health on the state level and local level of how to bring along our school culture, looking at bias and racial divisions, helping each person in this situation own and keep themselves accountable to their own feelings, and how to share those out with others in a school, but also throughout our community in a safe way. This is not an initiative that takes place just during one school year or 1 month, but it is a commitment that I make to this community when elected mayor to not give the efforts up and to come back into the community again and again before a need arises to do so, and do it as an ongoing part of the conversation with many partners. Thank you.
Ms. Winning.
Well, I have been trained at the National Association of Pupil Transportation. As you know, a number of things happen on a school bus when there's one adult and anywhere from 50 to 65 children on a bus. Our training has encompasses bullying, anti-bias, and we've also done extensive training in Northampton Public Schools. As I am the Director of Transportation, I oversee many bus drivers, van drivers, that are directly in the line of fire of hearing things out there from the kids. I look forward to sitting on the school committee in Easthampton as one of the voting members. I want to make sure that the 10-point plan that was put into place by the, yeah, okay. The 10-point plan that was put into place is carried through. But not only carried through, but it's very imperative and important that the 10-point plan is revisited to make sure that all of the things in that plan are not only being followed, but are also being effective in teaching the children that bias and anti-Semitisms and all of those things are just not welcome in our school environment. School environment should be always a safe and welcoming place.
Thank you. The next question is from Easthampton Media, and Ms. Winnie, you will respond
Okay.
first.
Good evening.
Evening.
Joy, would you please define community partnership and tell us how you will use that definition to build new and better partnerships within this community?
Well, we have a lot of partnerships that we need to build and we need to continue building. One of the biggest partnerships that I want to continue to build and strengthen is our partnership that we have with our businesses in Easthampton. It's imperative and it's important that not only do we welcome new businesses to the table and help support them, but we also need to find out what our businesses that are already here need to continue to grow and exist amongst Easthampton. Businesses are our background to our tax money coming into Easthampton, so it's very important that we uphold that. Our next partnerships need to be with the community in the learning curve as far as what our schools are doing. We need to get involved with our schools. We need to have the full community come on board with the trainings that are happening in the schools as well as outside of the schools. We all know that bias is not something that a child is born with, but that it's learned. So I'm going to go into partnership with the Easthampton Media Cable, which I've already been in partnership with, if you've ever seen my shows with them. And I'm going to do public announcements. We're going to get together. I want to get together speakers, roundtables, get it out there, get an open discussion going so that we can only improve our partnerships all through Easthampton.
Ms. LaChapelle?
The definition of community partnership is one that's really imperative for Easthampton right now. And to look at what my opponent has done on City Council for 21 years as the issues of race and bias became more and more to the forefront of our community makes me wonder what kind of partnerships she could really bring to the mayor's office. The partnerships that I would seek really start right on Main Street and on Parsons Street and out on East Street where I live with the residents. That partnership for me would start with the way I run my campaign, knocking on doors, but also doing that with knowledge and information and follow-up talking sessions with agencies like the Council on Aging, like our Department of Public Health, our school department, our faith leaders. The business community is watching us carefully, both those in Easthampton and those outside of Easthampton. If we are going to be a community that stays together, both as residents and leaders in the nonprofit and for-profit sector, so they will remain in Easthampton and continue to expand and invest in Easthampton. While it's very important to have the business leaders on the table, we need to start with the students, parents, and families in Easthampton. Bring them to the table, listen to them on their doorsteps, and let them tell us who makes the best partner to bring our community together.
The League of Women Voters.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'd like to respond.
Yes, you will have 30 seconds.
Thank you. The City Council and the school department are two separate entities. The school committee oversees the superintendent and the school department. It's up to the school committee to make policies and regulations that oversee the school department. When the issue of the things that were brought up, the school committee took appropriate action, as well as the superintendent and the mayor. The city council was fully informed as soon as it was made available as to what was happening.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters will address Ms. Luttrell. Thank you.
How would you support the continued development of the arts and entertainment in Easthampton without us becoming another Northampton, unaffordable for longtime residents?
That's a great question and a real concern, something that we're already starting to see happen here in Easthampton. I think we need to, one, support the artists and the cultural organizations that are here in Easthampton now, and listen very clearly to what their struggles are. And certainly one is affordability of studio space and performance space, not to mention living space. To support those existing artists and cultural organizations, I think we look to businesses that will complement those arts and cultural organizations, as well as make sure that we have affordable housing, market rate housing, stock ready and available for those artists to both live and work in. If we can find and attract small businesses that complement the arts, such as a firm that works with paint pigment or more bookmakers, that will bring a cluster of artists together that can withstand any economic up or down. We should also look for outside partners and work carefully with not just state and federal partners, but as well foundations throughout the country that support communities just like us with a growing arts and culture community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The development of the arts is a growing and an exciting thing in Easthampton. We don't ever want to do anything to stammy that growth and keep it from getting bigger and better. However, along with the growth of Easthampton comes the problems of the housing market is going up. People that want to be in Northampton can't afford to be in Northampton, so they're moving to Easthampton because it's lesser of a burden on them as far as taxes and the affordability of living in Easthampton. How to stem that, I don't know. It's almost like we've become an enemy unto ourselves. We've made Easthampton so great that people want to come and live here. And with that comes the increase in house prices, the availability of homes, and the unavailability of low-income or affordable housing. It's almost like a double-edged sword that we're facing. So as mayor, I will work very hard to increase our affordable housing stock. I think that's really where it needs to begin, and that's really where we need to focus on at this point. We still have opportunities for buildings that are out there that aren't filled and that can still be rehabbed. And I look forward to working with the partners in getting that up and running and working with it. Thank you.
Thank you. The Gazette, and Ms. Winnie, you're the recipient.
Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The city's current mayor has not supported designating Easthampton a sanctuary city, which are generally defined as places where local police decline to cooperate with federal officials to deport undocumented immigrants who have otherwise not committed a crime. If elected mayor, would you support such a designation? If so, why? If not, why not?
No, I won't. I won't, as mayor, designate Easthampton or make a mayoral proclamation that Easthampton is a sanctuary city. I think at this time that the Massachusetts state has made Easthampton a sanctuary state. As you all know, our local police department is not allowed to arrest people for being undocumented, and they have no appetite to. Easthampton police don't have the resources, they don't have the energy, nor do they have the ability to look for or to help ICE in any circumstances. Easthampton right now is facing an opioid crisis that is literally tying up our public safety officials. And I think that instead of focusing on a sanctuary city, we should be focusing on the health and welfare of all of our residents in Easthampton, including our first responders who have to deliver Narcan to people at least at a minimum once a week. It's a growing crisis, and I don't want to get off track, but no, I think that it's a much bigger issue than sanctuary cities at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Sanctuary cities and how it was first introduced to Easthampton really polarized and politicized those two words above and beyond your definition, Mr. Crowley, and that's very concerning to me. I think that the people of Easthampton who have collected signatures around this idea that discrimination by any city department, regardless if it is the police force or the DPW, is completely not tolerated within our city borders. I think that the discussion that the group of citizens tried to begin months ago around sanctuary cities needs to happen. The term sanctuary cities is beside the point, whether you call it safe communities or sanctuary cities. It's about not sending a clear message in this time, in this city, in this nation, that discrimination is not tolerated by anyone. And that Easthampton will not accept directives to take on federal responsibilities. Our local police force and public safety agencies have very clear local mandates to carry out on the limited resources that we have here in Easthampton. The discussion that I'd like to see happen is that additional time is given at a city council meeting following the process in the charter to discuss a citizens initiative around what does it mean for us to be a safe, welcoming committee? What can we guarantee those traveling through our city or moving into our city as far as no discrimination? Thank you. Sorry about that.
Please hold your applause till the end. Thank you. Let's see, the League of Women Voters and Ms.
Okay, a
Lachapelle
little
will
different
respond.
direction. What are your thoughts about supporting Medicare for all?
One thought, yes. I mean, yeah. But I have a minute and a half, so I think it's key. Running for office, you can definitely talk about anything. It's key. I look at the instability among families, young families, folks with pre-existing condition, folks who are really scrambling to find appropriate providers. And to then on top of that have to look or can be concerned about changes in health plans or that any given right under health care can be taken away. Medicaid for All provides a fair, balanced, equitable platform for everyone to access health care and wellness and a good set of reproductive rights as far as health care, as far as birth control, as far as I think of, as I look at my nephew, braces that can be onerous to a family, especially if you have more than one child who needs braces. And that should be a guarantee. That just shouldn't be a thought. That shouldn't be a wrinkle in anybody's forehead, regardless of age, regardless of income. It's about what you need to stay healthy, to be healthy. It makes our city healthy. It makes our state and our nation healthy. The conversation that is being politicized right now just has to end. We need to take care of our people. As mayor, I will do everything I can to support Medicaid for All as it comes forward.
Thank you, Ms. Winnie.
Yeah, it's, you have to. It levels the playing field. But a lot of people sometimes feel, or not a lot of people, but sometimes some people feel that they're paying for other people's medical bills, and that's just not the truth. The truth of the matter is, if we don't all have coverage, and people that don't have coverage go to the hospital, they still need to be treated, they still need to get their medications, and they will get it free. We, on the other hand, will have to pay for that service on the other end. So I think that Massachusetts was in front of the curve when they mandated that everybody have health insurance, and that the cost of the mandate is spread out through everybody, making it equitable and fair to everyone. So I think that Massachusetts was in the forefront. They did the best thing that they could. It's really concerning that on the federal level, they're trying to control that, and they're trying to make it worse on the states that have enacted, health care for all. And as mayor, I will always work for our employees to make sure that they have proper health care and that they are taken care of. And then advocate on the state level to make sure that they are doing their part as promised.
Thank you. Easthampton Media to Ms. Winnie.
I'm sorry, this is a bit long.
Okay.
In November 2018, transgender public access anti-discrimination will be on the Massachusetts ballot as referendum petition, Public Access Bill 735. On October 5th, Jeff Sessions rescinded legislation that removes protection for transgender folk in the workplace under Title VII. In April 2016, the City Council passed a resolution in support of the state legislation protecting transgender rights. This meeting was filled with many residents from Easthampton who gave testimony to how this protection was important to their well-being and safety in the city. If Public Access Bill 735, protecting transgender rights in public spaces in Massachusetts, is rescinded, along with Jeff Sessions rescinding Title VII, what will you do as mayor to support the rights of Easthampton transgender residents?
Wow, that's a good one. I will do everything as mayor to protect everyone's right. It's not up to us to decide who somebody is when they walk into the room. It's just not. We can't sit there and point the finger and say, you dress differently, therefore you're not allowed here. Or you think you're someone else that you thought that you weren't when you were born, therefore I will make the determination that you're not allowed here. It's unacceptable. It is bias at its finer, deepest point. I won't allow it. I feel that anybody who feels that they want to be whoever they want should be allowed that. And we should be respected. We should respect them. We should respect their feelings. And we should uphold that and support it. I'm not a person who has ever felt, and I would hope that the people that I grew up with and the people that live in Easthampton have ever felt that they are the people who could make those kind of decisions. These are very personal decisions, and they should be respected, and they should always be upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LaChapelle.
It's a really important issue and very concerning of what Jeff Sessions is considering to do. I would ask, my opponent exactly where she stood on this issue when it came before the City Council. LGBTQ citizens of our community, of the state, of the country, are subjected to some of the worst, hideous, insidious violence of any subgroup of our nation. The violence and issues of discrimination that transgender folks experience, it makes me stutter because I've heard it on the doors, I've had some phone conversations, and it is at the highest level of violence against someone for something that's not of their choice. You don't choose to be transgendered or gay or what you are. It's how you're born. It's who you are. And that's a human right to be able to do what you want and who you are without question. And my experience as a lawyer, these are very similar rights that I defend and just defended a couple of days ago before the National Labor Relations Board. As mayor, I would put through language to protect transgenders in the city and would lobby on the state to have very strong language the same.
All right, respond. 30 seconds? Is that what I get? Okay. Every 2 years when we were sworn in as city councilors, we reaffirm our commitment as city councilors to not be biased, to not be anything but a warm and welcoming city. And I'll sit here and say that never once have I ever done anything other than that. And I'm firmly committed to letting people be respected and who they are.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters and Ms. LaChapelle.
What are your views on school choice and its impact on school funding? And then there's a second part. Do you have a plan to address the deplorable state of the city's elementary school physical plants?
Thank you. The topic around school choice and the impact on the city's budget has come up in a very personal way for me. My daughter, I chose to put my daughter in a charter school about the time we moved into Easthampton. I looked at my daughter's learning needs as well as my own career as I was starting out as an educational administrator. The public schools did not have the before and after care that I needed to take advantage of the opportunities before me career-wise. But also, my daughter really needed the structure that the Hilltown Cooperative Charter School brought to her. This was in 1997 when the school choice and charter funding was a much different context than it is now, and there was a hope that public charter and choice would come together with the best practices. That's not the case anymore, and we need to work to fund better public schools. As far as addressing the deplorable conditions, we need a new pre-K-8, and I'm going to work very hard to make that as affordable and as appropriate for our students and our families. I think it's a great way to build a stronger culture in our educational system. I think our educators deserve a top-notch facility to really bring along the next generation of Easthampton residents. And I will try to make that as affordable as possible for us all.
Okay, thank you. Right now, $14,000 goes out the door for each charter student that leaves the city. $5,000 for school choice children that leave the city. Total of $2.1 million left our city in the last year. I'm in favor of the new school building. I feel that it will consolidate our administrators, our administration. It will save on our electric heating costs. It will economize our scales into all of our teaching, our ESPs, our OTs, our PTs, bring them all under one roof. Hopefully, we'll be able to make that building a green building like the high school is with solar panels to help offset some of the electrical costs. It's a big ticket item, but we must remember it was talked about 20 years ago and was put on the back burner when the high school, the old high school, was threatened to lose its accreditation. That's why the high school was put first on the plate. We had to do what was right for our students in Easthampton. And now, again, unfortunately, it's not going to get any cheaper. We need to bite the bullet. We need to do it. We need to build this building, and we need to bring it online. I, as mayor, will do everything to help make that happen, but I will also look at other programs to help our seniors that will be really affected by the price increase on the taxes.
Thank you. The Gazette, and Ms. Winnie, you were to respond.
Describe your leadership style and how it would benefit the city if you were elected mayor.
My leadership style is very collaborative. I know how to make the decisions, and I can make the decisions. However, I don't want to make decisions that are in a vacuum. So if it's a decision that has to do with the department, I'll be sure to bring in the department heads, and we will have the discussion of anything that needs to be done. If it involves laying off employees for any reason or having to let employees go, then it'll involve the human resources, the department heads, and I will do it methodically, and I will do it justly. I'm a person who really listens. I collaborate, I listen, and then I formulate what it is that I want to go ahead with, and I do it. I do this every single day in my job that I have right now. I have to make decisions in the split second that could involve 50 to 60 children on a school bus, children walking to school, walking safe schools. I'm involved in all of it. I'm a very good leader. I'm a type of leader where I collaborate with my team. I don't make decisions in a vacuum. And I'm very thoughtful about my decisions and who it will affect and the trickle-down effect that all decisions as a mayor will make.
My entire career by choice, I have led. I have led starting in a classroom and in the community as an activist, as a superintendent, as a director of special education, and as an attorney. Leadership is a very common title in what I do in every job description. What I've learned as an experienced leader is that years of service don't automatically equal the capability to make tough decisions, like I have for my entire career. Supporting or voting for another person's idea or looking at implementation, it doesn't equal leadership as well. Leadership is making a tough decision. It's keeping your ears open, it's keeping your mouth quiet, and surveying what's before you and what's most important. But what a leader really does, and as mayor, I pledge to do, is take tough decisions. And even if those tough decisions are looking at whether it's a department head, a member of the community, someone in the schools, and making that decision honestly, clearly, with all the available information, and staying to that decision and going forward and letting the folks in the department and the community where we're going and how we get there. That's what leadership does. To step forward, to take the responsibility of making very tough decisions quickly and allowing people to implement to the best of their ability.
Thank you. The League and Ms. LaChapelle.
Are there any plans to build a 55 and older senior housing?
Is that, as I'm aware of, no exact plan. Certainly it is something that has happened before in Easthampton, and it was one of the 40B applications that came before me on the zoning committee. I served for 10 years. The idea of more 55 and over housing is an interesting one and maybe something very appropriate for our community. But that's a decision that needs to be discussed with a potential developer for the right placement, with the planning department around servicing such a population to make sure that they're going to have their needs met. But as well, looking overall at our economy, our local economy, and seeing what we need best to sustain the success that we have economically, but also to hedge against times where revenue isn't so strong and the excitement isn't so big in Easthampton. And to be very smart and look at the smart growth checklist, look at the guidelines set out by the state of how we best go forward and maximize grants and federal state opportunities to bring in the housing most appropriate for our city going forward.
Ms. Winnie.
Okay. The 55 and over stock in Easthampton is something that really needs to be addressed. I have many friends who have actually sold their homes in Easthampton for quite a bit of profit, but couldn't stay in Easthampton because they couldn't afford to get a smaller place, a condo, something with low maintenance to stay here. So they've moved out of our community, and that's sad. So I will work with the planner and I will work with our state agencies to see, and the city council, to see what we can do to make it affordable for our residents who have lived here their whole lives and grown up, and even our new residents coming into Easthampton to be able to afford to stay here. It's a critical thing. It's a critical piece of talking that we really need to do. I just saw a statistic today that in 5 years, 30% of Easthampton will be 55 and over. And that is a huge number. When you think 16,000 people, 30% of us will be 55 and over. And we shouldn't have to be pushed out of Easthampton when we sell our home and have to move somewhere else because we can't afford to stay here. So yeah, it's going to be a big, big discussion, and it really does have to take place.
Thank you. The media.
And where do you see Easthampton fitting into regional and statewide economy, and how would you leverage our relationships within these economies?
I think this is another key economic development, but also community-based point for Easthampton right now. Easthampton must stay competitive, whether it is housing stock, small business, arts and culture. To do that, we must look to partners outside of Easthampton. The other day, my opponent here clearly said at the Council of Aging she was not going to seek support or resources outside of Easthampton, but focus inward. I think that that's completely the wrong approach. It's short-sighted. Easthampton thrives by bringing in partners, whether that is federal and state agencies, whether that is foundations focused on helping over 55 residents. It's bringing in a medical center to look at what health services are directly in our city. It's key. It's how we, again, sustain the success we have experienced, but also make sure that everyone in Easthampton can participate in it. I would say the other is folks leaving Northampton to come to Easthampton, or vice versa, is not a flow that should be stemmed. If we're a welcoming city, then we are welcoming to everyone, whether it is somebody from Northampton or from Holyoke or Wisconsin. It is key that we're bringing together the partnerships, which I have existing working relationships with state and federal agencies, our elected officials, and not-for-profit and planning boards all throughout the region. I'll bring that to Easthampton as mayor.
All right, well, I did not say that, but going forward, I have been working with our state and federal legislators for 21 years as a city councilor. I don't sit in a little bubble and not reach out to our major players. I have worked with Nancy Flavin, our retired state representative, Mike Knappich, our retired state senator. I have worked with Don Humison. I have worked with John Sybeck. I've been in the office, or not in his office, but I have had communication with our Congressman Richard Neal on certain issues that have come up in Easthampton, actively promoting Easthampton and asking for their help. We don't live in a bubble in Easthampton. We reach out to our state and federal partners when we need them. And in this case, I will absolutely do that. And I will also promote regionalization on certain services. We've already done it. We've regionalized right now with Southampton to finally get into place a environmentalist position. I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head. Working with okay, I'm done. No, I'm sorry. But we've regionalized with Westfield for our animal control officer. Regionalization is very important to Easthampton.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters, and Ms. Winnie, you'll take this question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Recycling does not seem to be required in Easthampton. Would you enforce recycling by tenants and landlords?
Yes, I would love to, but that would have to go back to the health department. And that would be in collaboration with the health department, because the health department is in charge of our trash. So yes, I mean, it is a mandate in Easthampton that households recycle their plastic, their paper, and their glass, and so forth. We have our facility at the Department of Public Works open. Is it every other Saturday, I think, a month, where the residents can buy a sticker, but they can go down and they can recycle their brush, their paper, and all of their other recyclables, should they choose not to have their contractor do it. I have a dumpster in my yard, and I voluntarily recycle my tenants' recyclables and my own. So for anybody else that has tenants, for them to do it, it's not unconceivable. It can be done, and I think I just would have to work with the Department of Public Health and our health inspector to develop some regulations around that. Thank you.
In the 20 years that I've lived in Easthampton, I've never known that it was mandated I needed to recycle. And in fact, many weeks I forgot to put my recycling out. As mayor, would I support mandated recycling of tenants and landlords? I would give it strong consideration. But we have to look at the expense and also the way that that recycling would happen. We don't want to put an undue burden on landlords and tenants, but there's some really creative, innovative ways to look at recycling. And I had a couple of conversations in the last 2 weeks around, pedal people and them picking up compost and looking at them helping our residents with recycling. I think it's something, yes, we have to look in, and we have to look at single stream recycling. We buy our trash service in the city. And to have, when we're talking about those trash and refuge companies working in Easthampton, let's have a conversation with them about helping folks recycle in a more meaningful, easy way that does not increase the cost, but also separating that service of recycling maybe out from trash pickup and allowing specialists and companies like the Pedal People to focus on recycling and composting. I think it's a smart thing to do for our community, a smart thing to do for the earth, as well as future generations that will be really facing the issues now.
The Gazette and Ms. LaChapelle, you'll go first.
What assets and areas that the city is responsible for funding do you feel have been neglected or overlooked? And where would you look to make capital investments if elected mayor?
Number one comes to mind would be the schools. Our school facilities, we've kicked the can down the road now for decades, and ending up with the oldest elementary schools in the state, and putting resources towards those. I think it shows the value that this community and city puts on education, and it sends a strong message throughout the region that our children and our educators are very important to us. A second area that I would look at around funding and capital spending would be our public safety agencies. The police department, the fire department, every single day face life-threatening situations and have no idea when those situations will present themselves. To make sure that they have the resources, but also the equipment to do so, is key. And it is a key community value of Easthampton to keep our streets and communities safe. I think a third area that we need to look at with supporting would be the Department of Public Works. Like the fire and police departments, the Department of Public Works does more with less, and we need to make sure that they have the equipment they need to get the job done. Thank you.
When I was elected city council 21 years ago, I could remember the discussion with Mayor Michael Tausnig about why are we replacing police cruisers on the budget? Why aren't we just putting them in a rotating capital improvement fund? Well, it took a few years, but guess what we did? We started putting our cruisers into a capital revolving rotation, and in the last 2 to 4 years, our present mayor, Mayor Cadger, has created the stabilization capital fund. And we have been very successful in purchasing fire engine, DPW dump trucks, DPW trucks. We've purchased cruisers. We've purchased many, many equipment out of that fund that the mayor has fortuitously and dedicatedly put that money away. Just last night, we have over $1 million in that fund. And every year, the mayor sits down with the department heads, and she asks them what their priorities are for their capital improvements. That will be something that I will continue. It is a very logical, a very economical way to purchase our equipment to make sure that our departments have the up and standing equipment and things that they need. Thank you.
League of Women Voters to Ms. Winnie.
Okay.
Is there any way to target funding to repair our dismal streets?
I wish.
They ask. Are we at the mercy of the Commonwealth?
Yeah.
Please explain how we receive funding for same.
Well, we get our funding from the state. Yes, we do. It was a long time ago when we used to get a lot of lottery money, and we were able to use that to help fill the potholes. But essentially, we are dependent on the state for Chapter 90 money for the road work and our infrastructures. We are right now in the queue to receive a grant to redo Union Street, which will be from the bottom up. It will include the reconstruction of all of the infrastructure on Union Street right up until the beautification of Union Street, which will be a wonderful thing because that will now connect Cottage Street and Main Street, which have already been done in the last 20 years, giving people that connection. One of the biggest things I hear from the Union Street proprietors and business owners is that you walk down Union Street and you feel like you've left Easthampton because there doesn't seem to be the continuity from leaving beautiful Cottage Street and going to Main Street. So that will address that big issue. But as far as filling the potholes and other road work, I know that the DPW has been very careful with their Chapter 90 money. They've come up with some new methods to repave the roads that seem to be working pretty good and seem to be a little less expensive. And I think they'll just continue to keep doing that. And as mayor, I will continue to help support them do that. Thank you.
I think the roads are certainly an issue I hear all the time at the doors and at other forums. Looking at the Complete Street grant is very exciting, but I think the question actually brings up another point and an opportunity that I would take advantage of as mayor and increase transparency and communication around what our Department of Public Works does. They work very hard with too few resources. To understand why one road may be paved or in another one just has the potholes patched is important. It's not that someone's not doing their job, it's just communicating out to the residents of Easthampton of why something is going on. Whether it be at Admiral Street, where we had a very designated grant that was around water mains and pavement, and getting that out there. With my existing relationships with our elected officials and public employees out at MassDOT, Department of Transportation, and MassWorks, I will advocate very strongly for a reformulation of Chapter 90 monies. This is an argument and advocacy that I've done around Chapter 70 money for public education. I am a familiar face and voice on Beacon Hill and in Washington, D.C., and small cities like Easthampton deserve their due of Chapter 90 monies to keep our streets safe with all of the changes that are going around, and not be denied money just because we're 90 miles away from Boston.
Easthampton Media.
So the Board of Public,
You've,
can I,
all right.
no? Yes? Maybe?
You
No?
were-
would be
I
the-
didn't hear the,
Okay, right, what did I say?
No,
that?
nothing. Go ahead.
thank you.
Sorry.
Easthampton Media and, let's see, Ms. LaChapelle.
Okay.
Will you appropriate city funds to maintain and improve Easthampton's municipal conservation lands? For example, trail creation, maintenance, and the control of invasive plants. And if not, what do you regard as the most critical conservation issue facing Easthampton?
I would look to appropriate city monies, yes. It's one of the greatest assets of Easthampton. The land that we have under protection, our conservation areas, it makes Easthampton special, unique, it draws folks here. Also, it's an investment in our future, in our water supply, in our air supply. Balancing the money appropriated to those efforts is a challenge. Like every dollar that's in the city's budget, you have to look carefully and plan forward on how best to do that. My focus would be on protecting the aquifer and also looking at trouble spots in Easthampton around the water, the lower pond at the mills, looking at One Ferry Street and making sure that we're doing the best we can, while also looking at land in very important places like our mountain view, the bottleneck, and making sure that that is not developed and ruin a beautiful view that is the hallmark of Easthampton. After water, I would look carefully at the rail trail. I think that we have underestimated the impact of that on our community, and with the connected lands, we need to invest and improve upon that and not leave it to a not-for-profit to go it alone. It attracts and brings very good things to Easthampton.
Ms. Winnie?
So Easthampton just went into a regional agreement with Southampton using our CPA money and grants, where we purchased a large, significant amount of land over Easthampton and Southampton's aquifer. Our aquifer starts in West Hampton, goes under Southampton, and comes into Easthampton. It's critical that the two cities in the town work together to preserve that aquifer. When our aquifer was, in fact, violated by TCE back about 20 years ago, and I will say violated, we ended up having to put in a water treatment station down on Hendricks Street, which now had to treat that water because of the TCE levels. Easthampton has what I have always considered, and just won national awards a few years ago, the best water in the United States. It's what has brought 3 breweries to Easthampton. Is not because of where we are, but it's because of our water. It's critical that we keep our water supply in its pristine amount, in its pristine value as much as possible. So that is going to be my priority, is to make sure that our aquifer is protected. Our Conservation Commission does a very good job in protecting our open spaces.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters and Ms. Winnie.
Did you support the legalization of marijuana in Mass? And what are your hopes and concerns for Easthampton, given the current reality?
Well, yes, I did vote yes on the legalization of marijuana. However, I can't partake of it. I have a commercial driver's license, and the federal government still says that marijuana is an excluded drug, so I can't take it, nor do I have any reason to. However, people that are living with fibromyalgia, people that are living with major health issues, if they find that marijuana helps them, then darn it, I'm all for it. I'm more for marijuana than I am alcohol. Alcohol is a very destructive, what I consider, drug. It's addicting, and it has a lot of downfalls. So what will marijuana bring to our city? Hopefully some revenue. Let's just be open and honest about it. I'm hoping that it will bring you some revenue. Easthampton has always been welcoming to new businesses, and we certainly are going to support these new businesses. And I'm really not worried about overseeing the marijuana, because I have a feeling that our state legislators will have a very firm handle on all of the legalities and all of the structures that will come with the legalization of the recreational marijuana.
I voted yes for legalization of marijuana. More importantly, well over 50% of residents in Easthampton voted yes, and that has to be listened to. The marijuana industry is here, it's coming at us, and our ordinance committee, City Council Ordinance Committee, should be commended on their work on local ordinances, regulation, and placement around medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, and the cultivation of marijuana, to the point where we are considered a prime location for dispensaries, both medical and for recreational. We already have a cultivation facility in city. That puts us on an economic advantage with local tax and local control. The way that the regulations now look from the state, it's a great way to bring local revenue separate from residential taxes into our city and focus that revenue to strengthening our economy and public services. I am very confident that our planning department and board with the City Council Ordinance Committee will find appropriate placements and the appropriate amount for dispensaries. We wouldn't want 50 gas stations on Main Street, and we don't want 60 marijuana dispensaries on Cottage Street. The opportunity is rich and broad for Massachusetts, but especially Easthampton. And I look forward to watching that process go forward.
Like I said.
Describe one of the first things you'd like to change in the city of Easthampton as mayor, and how will you go about trying to achieve it? Describe one of the first things you'd like to change.
You know, I have taken and stepped into leadership roles over and over again throughout my career. And what I have learned in those leadership roles is the first thing to change is actually very little, and to listen and to get out into the community or among your team that you're leading and see how things are working right now as you step into the office, and in this case, the mayor's office. And match that up with the priorities of the community or the folks that you are going to serve, that you're responsible and accountable to. I think that there is a fresh look at the way we operate and interact with our community that needs to be taken. We have done a visioning process in the past, and we need to do a new visioning process that actually puts folks collecting the data into the community. Survey responses are certainly helpful in this process, but have very low return rates. We have to have open forums talking about that visioning and how we want our city to look like in 25 years with how we operate now. So the change that I would first undertake is actually to listen, to collect data in many different ways in every section of our city to understand what the vision process forward should look like and what steps we need to take to expand and strengthen Easthampton as we know now.
Ms. Winnie.
I'm very glad to hear you say that. You got my idea. It's awesome. We did visioning 20 years ago, and it was the best thing that Easthampton ever did. The visioning process 20 years ago brought us our plan, our master plan that we have now basically gone almost 80% through. So when I first came out in front of the pond, that was the first thing I said was Easthampton has to reconvene the visioning process, and that will include the full community. And that will be here at the high school. Everybody will come to the high school. Everybody will get together. We will have hired people to strategize with us, implement it, bring all of the pieces together, and we will come out with a plan at the end of the visioning process. It's what we did 20 years ago. It's what needs to be done 20 years later. What do I want to change when I walk into the mayor's office? Nothing yet. What I want to do is sit down with my department heads individually and find out from them what it is that they think they're doing good, what it is they think they can do better, and how can we help them do that. That's where I come in as a facilitator and a listener. Thank you.
May I rebut?
I didn't hear the, oh, yes, I did.
I'd just like to remind my opponent of the day that I announced and talked about a revisioning process, and that was on June 20th, and put that forward on my website and in Facebook. Revisioning does need to be done. The way we did it 20 years ago is not going to work now. And to expect everyone to come to the high school to be a part of that process is just not how we go forward. And it's part of the problem right now that City Hall and those responsible for the vision and master plan need to leave City Hall, need to leave the high school and go to where the people and the residents are, because different people, oh, excuse me, thanks.
The League and Ms. Winnie.
This question is for Nicole.
Oh.
Can I do that?
But the rules were that the
No.
question had to be for both candidates.
All right. Okay. If the proposed K-8 school is built on, is it Whitebrook's property, what will be done about the traffic situation, speeding, which is pretty bad now? The speed limit is 30 and people go way faster. Seeing how there will be more cars commuting to the school from other areas of town. So they're concerned about the traffic if this school is built on the Whitebrook's
Yes.
property.
Well, Park Street and where Whitebrook is situated right now is kind of on a corner. I know that we do have the 20 miles per hour blinking light up there. Yes, it will increase the number of students and parents going back and forth to the school. I'm hoping that once the school is built, that the administration and the school committee and the superintendent and the mayor sitting on the school committee would get involved with Safe Routes to School, which is a state and federal program. I've been involved in it in Northampton. And what they will do is they will come in and they will lend their expertise to develop bike paths, routes that are safe for the children to ride their bikes to school, walking routes, and walking school bus routes. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do as mayor is to make sure that there's a police presence on Park Street on and off. We have 2 crossing guards there now, one to cross the kids from Park Street and the other to cross the kids across the driveway. They would stay there. Maybe we could put up more signage alerting people coming around the corner that there is in fact a school there. But, you know, we'll have to work with it. And if we have to do a traffic study to implement a lot of it, then that's what we'll have to do.
It's very exciting what the school building committee has put together and gone forward to the state and working with the state on the project. The traffic pattern change, not just at Whitebrook coming in and out, but also around the city, needs to be carefully considered. I think that as mayor, I would want to listen to the conversations of the existing school building committee, but as well the principals and superintendent and parents association around staggering start times and finish times, looking at the impact on our transportation budget, but also the schedules and needs of our families and students, not just for safety, but also for convenience to accommodate different schedules that different families should have. The idea of a walking school bus or bike path to and from school is fantastic, but we still need to look at how the flow of traffic and activity of Whitebrook works for students starting at pre-K up to 8, and how we can measure that going in and out. Increased police presence is certainly one option, but I think we need to look at something that is more immediate and everyday, whether that is crossing guards or adding speed bumps, and working with the school, Massachusetts School Building Authority with the existing committee as soon as possible to add that to our finalized plans, and certainly before it goes to the ballot and the voters decide ultimately.
Thank you. Easthampton Media, please, and to Ms. LaChapelle.
Would you please describe the difference between transparency and accessibility in municipal government and talk about what systems you would implement or develop as mayor?
So transparency, I've been asked a lot about this. It was, there were two words that are actually on my beginning piece of lit. Accessibility is very similar to what we talked in the, about in the revisiting process, where City Hall and those in elected positions are responsible to the residents and keeping them safe, providing opportunities for recreation, for business, for housing, for safety. That conversation and accessibility to those resources need to happen in the community where the residents are. Certainly, City Hall's doors need to be open and are open, but those who work inside City Hall, those who sit on committees and City Council, need to walk outside of those doors regularly, often, in a scheduled way to hear what people in the community are hoping for, what dream about, but also their struggles. The accessibility also addresses how people just walk and transport themselves around the city and making sure that's easy as possible. Transparency, for me, is looking at the zoning regulations and being very clear that they apply to all, that there is an open conversation about how to access any given policy, protocol, or department, and look at tough decisions that have been made and openly discuss them, and not be afraid of being discounted or ignored the next time you bring something forward.
Ms. Winnie.
Open government, transparency, the city council and the mayor, I think it's now been 6 years, have mandated that all of the city council subcommittees, all of the meetings, are now filmed and put up on Easthampton Media for anybody to go in and look at. Now, I realize a lot of people don't have cable, a lot of people don't have computers. So that's why that the meetings are all typed and put into the city clerk's office for the meeting notes and our meeting recordings. Those are all accessible. The city hall has the elevator and is accessible to all 3 floors, but that's physical accessibility. I think what Mayor Cadger is doing now and what I will continue to do is go out into the public once a week and have coffee and let it be known with the citizens where I'll be and where I'm going to be having coffee. And I'll be sitting in different locations in Easthampton, welcoming people to come talk with me, have a cup of coffee, tell me what's on their minds. I will listen. I, as Precinct 3 counselor, would have meetings in the elderly housing projects in their meeting rooms, offering them cookies and juice to just come and chat. I'll continue to do that.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters, to Ms. Winnie.
How will you financially support the arts in Northampton?
In Northampton?
I'm sorry,
I won't.
Easthampton.
Sorry.
I knew I was going to do that. so now-
Sorry. No, I won't do that. Thank you. I've already said that I will continue to support our arts coordinator position. It's vital in keeping our arts community up and coming, vital in their recognition. It's vital in receiving our grants. I will continue to keep that position, and I've made that promise to many of the people in the arts community. I also think that the arts community needs to be supported by public service announcements. Let's face it, they have been a huge, huge influence on Easthampton. We want to continue that partnership. The Easthampton Community Arts that we appoint people to on the city council with the mayor's recommendations is vital. We have a good group, a great group of people working on that. We want to support, even though it's privately run at this point, the old city hall in their renovation of the top floor. That's a really important thing that needs to be done for the city. It's going to offer the city more entertainment space, and it's going to be beautiful when it's done. I don't know if any of you have gone on the plans, but you really should. And if you have the fortitude or the money to help with that, please do. But yes, we need to support the arts.
The Gazette, Ms. Winnie.
Why,
No, she has to.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she has to answer.
I support the arts too. I'd like to speak to that.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay.
My daughter was here. She'd be making a face if I didn't say that. She works in metal as a sculptor. The arts community and supporting it financially, I think, is a big part of our community and the success we've had in local community, local economy. There's no difference in my mind between arts and culture and what they bring to the city and small business. I look to support them financially, certainly with an arts coordinator position, as that salary may need supplementing in the city budget. But I am very heartened and impressed by what the planning department and our current ECA Plus executive director has done by expanding the streams of funding coming in. And I will work very hard with state and federal partners to bring in more money into our community for arts and culture to make sure that it's affordable and accessible. I think that as well, the opportunity with the local tax on marijuana, as well as the reassessment of properties throughout the city, provides extra revenue so we can underscore the importance of the arts by funding it better and bringing the arts into our educational system, as well as our small business community as a full partner.
Now the Gazette.
question
And
for-
it goes to Ms. LaChapelle.
Why are you a better choice for mayor than your opponent at this time for the city? Please be specific.
I think it comes, the broadest possible term and difference, it's leadership. My entire career, I have been in leadership positions. I have been in Easthampton by choice and taken lead on different initiatives, whether that's on the zoning board or as a member of the Easthampton Democratic City Committee, and I'm proud of that. I think that Easthampton needs a fresh look at many things. Given the success that we've experienced, that needs a nod. But going forward, the leadership qualities I have as far as reviewing departments, working with municipal budgets, not relying on what was, or addressing, protecting, or continuing a legacy of past leaders, but looking forward, I do that unflinchingly. And look forward to also bringing in folks who do not have a seat at the table, whether that's at City Hall or in our schools, and having them provide their perspective and validating it. That's something that I think clearly distinguishes me from my opponent in this race. Being on city council is voting for someone else's idea and make sure it's implemented as a legislator. As a leader of different organizations, for and not for profit, I'm very comfortable in making tough decisions, but also choosing the right plan and spending the right funds to push forward whoever or what other organization I'm leading.
Ms. Winnie.
I'm the better choice for mayor of Easthampton. I have the experience. I was not appointed to be a city councilor. I ran, and that was my choice to run. And it was my choice to run because I love Easthampton. I have been committed to Easthampton for 21 years and to its residents. The budgets in Easthampton have been, for 21 years, thoughtfully put together and carried out. I know how to put that budget together. I was there from the first day when we went from a select board budget to a city council budget to a mayoral budget. I'm very confident that I can carry that on going forward without skipping a beat. I know that a lot of people out there think that I'm old Easthampton and I'm not visionary to new Easthampton, and nothing could be further from the truth. I have many, many ideas to pull Easthampton together and move us forward in an even better way than our two past mayors have done. It's just what Michael Tausnick did for his first 17 years, and it's what Mayor Cadger has done for her last 4 years. They both had their own ideas. I have mine.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for this questioning. We're getting ready for the closing statements, and before we have them, I'd like to remind you of the speakeasy tonight at Eastworks in Suite 160, and I believe the candidates will be there. And I hope that a lot of you will go and continue to talk amongst one another about Easthampton and where you'd like to see the city go. Also, I want to thank the public school department for letting us use their wonderful high school auditorium. This is a beautiful place and a beautiful school. It's my first time seeing the school, and it's very impressive. And now we will begin with Ms. Winnie for the closing.
Okay, thank you. In the first 100 days in office, I will work for the future of everyone in Easthampton by working with the school building committee to advocate for the new preschool through 8th grade building, which will bring all of our school buildings into the 21st century, resulting in lowering our $2.1 million school choice assessment. I will implement Easthampton's senior tax work-off program to assist in the reduction of our seniors' property taxes. I will reconvene a community visioning process inclusive to all residents in Easthampton. I will gather business stakeholders to strategize attracting new businesses and sustaining our existing businesses. I will spearhead a youth center task force. I will support Hampshire Hope to address the opioid crisis that is affecting Easthampton. I will work to increase affordable housing units and protect our water aquifer. The voters of Easthampton have a decision to make on November 7th as to who you want to lead them on this exciting journey and growth and improvements. I ask that you choose me, Joy, as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about why I want to be mayor and to have a dialogue with my opponent. The choice between myself and my opponent before the voters, I feel, is very clear. My opponent has a lot of factual knowledge. She has lived here her entire life as generations before. I chose to move here, I chose to stay, and I also have observed the government, how it works, and to carry on in a just-like pattern, it's just not acceptable, and it's not what Easthampton deserves. The success that we have experienced was gained by hard work and dedication, but the experience that we need to go forward and to succeed is a different type of leader, a leader like myself who has existing working relationships around the region and the state. In my first 100 days, the key word is listen. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for participating tonight in the mayoral forum, and we hope that you will be sure to get to the polls. And thank you very much.
Thank you.